Hello, welcome to Xeris Gaming's Why is Force of Destiny not as popular as the other Fantasy Flight games? So, I've been asking around over the years, and the two reasons that keep popping up over and over again by so many different people is one, people don't know it exists because they think that there's one Star Wars game. So this also goes to Age of Rebellion as well. They think there's one Star Wars game, that's Edge of Empire. So they don't play the other ones because they just don't know it exists. Now I can conjecture all day why I think that is, but I'm not going to do that for this video. I am going to say that we can counteract this by just informing people that there's other Fantasy Flight Star Wars games, that there's three, and explain that the reason, and this is the real reason, was the Star Wars universe was so huge they couldn't compact it to one game, so they just put it in three games specializing in areas, so no one would feel left out, so they could play their favorite parts of the Star Wars universe. Now, the second reason, and I'm going to have to counteract these beliefs, but they believe that Jedi are going to be overpowered. And the three reasons that keep coming up why this is one, they use lightsabers. Two, they use the Force. Three, which is the most ridiculous, is, well, they're Jedi. So, you know. That's what they say, literally. You know, they're just Jedi. Which is probably the most ridiculous of the three, because, and I'll explain why that is. Actually, immediately. Now, to say they're just Jedi is such an inaccurate statement that I would argue is such lacking in knowledge about not only about this game, but about how role-playing games work in general. I'll explain that explain that reason immediately as well. It would be the statements like saying D&D that I don't want to play I don't want to make a character because adventurers are overpowered. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, and I assure you, I will make sense of this. You're going to yourselves going, well, what does that have to do with anything? I mean, there's not an adventure. There's all these different classes. You don't start as an adventurer. You do start as an adventurer, but you have these classes like cleric, warlock, wizard, paladin, fighter, ranger, rogue. They each have their own strengths and weaknesses. So to put them all in one category as adventurer would be such an inaccurate statement. Exactly my point. There is no First off, you don't start as a Jedi, you start as a Force sensitive. You have to earn your way to become a Jedi on the morality meter. And it's such an inaccurate statement because there's not one kind of Force-sensitive user. There's different careers and specializations, as there are different classes in D&D. And they each have their own strengths and weaknesses. Like you have the consular that's more Force-focused, or a warrior that's more fighting focused. There's Mystic, and there's Sentinel, and there's Seeker, and Was it Seeker or Keeper? I don't remember. But my point is, there's so much variety and difference between these careers and specializations that to rub them all into one overall category dubbed Jedi would be such an inaccurate statement. It would be as inaccurate as rubbing all the classes in D&D as adventurer. And just say that's all you need to know. It's not all you need to know. You need to know these careers and specializations. You need to know these classes as you need to know these classes for D&D. So, as for the Force, that one's going to be a little trickier. Yes, you can use the Force, but you don't start out very strong. So you have to, as you gradually progress, you have to progress in skills, ability trees, and so forth, and to get stronger. Like when you start out using the Force, you're not going to immediately just push someone back off a wall or off a balcony or something. Push someone off a balcony. No, you can. Have the ability to like move someone's keys away from them or something. So you're not going to immediately. No, a more accurate sim is like you would move a toothpick away from one side to the other, and then as you gradually get stronger, you can probably maybe push someone off, but we'll get back to that. And there's a difference between the Force and Destiny game and with using the Force and using the Force in Edge of Rebellion and Edge of Empire. That's my other point that I wanted to make was pretty much any class or career can learn the Force in the Fantasy Flight games. Fantasy Flight Star Wars games. So to think that it's completely bound to Force sensitives is kind of inaccurate. You just have to spend the points to learn the Force and so forth. But in Age of Rebellion and Edge of Empire, you use Force points to spend to use the Force by rolling a die. But in Force and Destiny, you don't have Force points. You have light side points and dark side points. So you have that internal struggle going on between the light side and dark side. And whichever you choose may make it difficult. You may not use them. You may use them but change them, but take strain and so forth. So it's a lot trickier to use a Force in Force and Destiny than it is in the other games because you have the light side and dark side to contend with each other. So there's that. You don't start with we went over that. But the other side is, say you try to push someone off a balcony with the Force. They can do an opposing check, even if they're not not Force sensitive. They can do an opposing check where you have to roll and get a success to make it work. But you can have the problem with that is with these dice, you can get something called threat, so you can succeed and still have something bad happen, which usually happens most of the time, from my experience. So it's not easy pickings. That's it. People try to make it out to be. And as for the lightsabers, do you have any idea what you have to go through to get one? I mean, as a newcomer looking, I imagine some of you guys are newcomers looking on the inside, not on the inside, on the outside looking in. You're like, well, don't you start off with a lightsaber? No, you do not. only in the beginner's game, but not in the Force and Destiny game, because you have to either find one, buy one, or craft one. And crafting one's the easier one. Which finding a buyer willing to sell you one is, because it's incredibly rare. There's a rarity meter from 1 to 10, 1 being the least rare and 10 being the rarest. They rank at 10 every time. So you have to, and yeah, also the, like, being a force sensitive, you're being hunted by the Empire, so you have to be careful who you tell this to, or else they'll sell you out to the Empire or try and make a buck off you by selling you, or set up a trap. So you not only have to be careful who you trust, you have to find the right buyer, and you have to find out if this buyer really actually has it. And it's much easier to craft one, but you have to get the materials, which are very rare, and you can screw up and have to start over. For the most part, yeah, like, the details are kind of fuzzy because I'm gonna be honest, I lost a lot of my source books on my trip back, so a little fuzzy on the details. But basically, you have to spend 3 days in meditation uninterrupted, and you have to focus on a lightsaber, and I believe that something can go wrong, it may not come out as right, and so forth. And what people have told me is they know the only reason they get a lightsaber is for role-playing reasons. Because, granted, you can modify them and so forth, but my point is, they're such a pain to obtain. Personally, I think it would be fun to tame one, but it's still, you have to go through this long, grueling process to get one. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, they just get a lightsaber, it's going to be easy. No, it's not that easy. But yeah, so that's the two reasons that people say why they don't play Force and Destiny is, one, they don't know exists, two, they feel Jedi are overpowered, and I feel if we want them to play this game more, it's a thing of information, really. You just keep them informed. No, you have nothing to worry about. This is how the game works. Explain it, simplify it. This game does exist. And so I think that's all I'm going to talk about for this video. So this is Zara signing off.